Hey guys, it's Dr. Mason. I will be handling the frog specimen. Dr. Mick is actually behind the camera holding her cell phone. Today's lab, we're going to actually be going over dissecting a frog. This is relatively easy compared to the other specimens that we're going to do. When I say relatively easy, that does not mean to relax when you're going through the dissections. In this video, we're going to go over some of the external morphology of what looks like a bullfrog here. And then another video will actually start to look at the internal structures. So first things first, with every frog that we see, their ears right here, they're actually called the tympanum. So so these right here, tympanum. That's, again, their ear, and it's very specific. That term is specific to specifically frogs. Just like with any specimens, if we're angling towards the head, that's going to be an anterior. And if we're going towards the back, the opposite of the head, that's going to be more posterior. And hopefully you guys know this, the front limbs closer to the head, so that would be anterior. These are actually going to be your forelimbs, and then these will be your hind limbs. Okay? Just very quick and brief external anatomy when it comes to a frog. And right now I'm actually going to cut into the frog. A lot of the frog specimens are already going to be cut here. I suspect because the labs that we buy these frogs from, they're actually taking out the liver. So if this is open already, we're probably not going to see the liver, and we could actually start cutting this way and start cutting this way and then kind of open up the specimen. If you do not have this opening already, let me know, and then we could go over together, but you will actually make the initial cut yourself and then start to open it up. Okay, so let me get some of my tools. We want to be very gentle and make sure we're only cutting the skin and not trying to cut anything under the skin. Oh, and you can actually see I got some muscle there. Kind of opening it up a little bit. So flip this around just for the ease of the video. A little bit more. And ideally we want to keep these flaps available because we want to preserve our specimen. So we're going to put some preservative in this frog once we're done, and then kind of like close it up like that, wrap around with paper towel. But right now I just did a few snips, and you can kind of see the inside, the internal anatomy of the frog. And in the next video, we're actually going to be going over all those structures. Hey guys, quickly, I wanted to go over some of the features that could be found near and around the frog's mouth. The really, I want to say, is the easier features would be the internal and external nares. External outside, which are more or less the nostrils of the frog. These are the external nares. The internal nares, in order to find them, you have to be a little aggressive opening the frog's mouth. But the internal nares, I'm holding my thumb back here to hold the frog's mouth open, and the internal nare, we could see one on this side. This hole right here is the internal nare. And as you guys probably can imagine, that the air going through the external nare is going to go through the internal nare there. The two other features I want to show you guys are the teeth of the frog. We have the maxillary teeth and the vomeron teeth. And the vomeron teeth, I'll start with, they're more obvious. There's two of them in almost every frog species. So here's one tooth and here's the other tooth. So vomeron teeth, say it out loud to yourself. The maxillary teeth, they're not true microscopic, but they're very hard to see on specimens, but they're basically lined all around the mouth of all frog species, as far as I know. There are probably exceptions because it's science, but almost every frog species that I do know has maxillary teeth. Again, very tiny, minute teeth. And a question for you guys, what do you think the function is of maxillary teeth here of a frog, and also the vomeron teeth of the frog? And last thing I want to show you guys is the tongue of the frog. This is going to be very difficult to do, but again, you have to be a little bit aggressive. But again, I'm holding the mouth open of what I think is the bullfrog, and then here's their tongue. And oftentimes you could extend them out kind of like that. And it even extends out even more than this. So as you can imagine, very long tongue. The texture is different than our own tongue, but when you do this yourself, feel the tongue, try to pull the tongue out and see what you could see. So a recap of the video, we just went over the tongue, we went over 2 types of teeth, and we also went over the 2 different types of nares of the frog specimen. Hey guys, so we're doing the internal anatomy of a frog. Everything we're going over today is going to be the same structures of other vertebrates that we're going over. Again, the goal of this lab is just to get you familiar with dissections, with the tools that we're using, and a more relatively simplistic body system compared to more recently evolved vertebrates. What Dr. Mick and I did recently, we actually removed some of the skin that originally was there. Do not do that on your specimen. We just did that for educational purposes to hopefully better see inside the actual body of the frog. Okay, so your worksheet should have a bunch of structures that you need to be able to find on your own and know their function for this frog. So one of the first things that we're going to actually see here, this specimen actually has its liver still intact. Frogs have 3 lobes of the liver. Here's actually the right lobe of the liver. Here's the median lobe of the liver. These look like 2, but they're actually attached. So this is the median lobe of the liver, and then here is the left lobe of the liver. Keep in mind, as you're seeing this, this is on our right side, but it's actually the left side of the frog. Thus, the left lobe of the liver, the right lobe of the liver, and the median lobe of the liver, okay? So what other structures do we have? We have the heart. Hopefully you guys know the importance of a heart, but our heart is going to be right here. And this kind of saran wrappy sheet that's actually around it, that is going to be the pericardial sac. Hopefully you guys know the function of the pericardial sac. Again, the saran wrap that's around this heart. We're going to be seeing that more in other specimens that we actually dissect. We also have lungs. So lungs, we're going to go dig a little bit. It might be easier if I get rid of these liver lobes. I'm going to keep them in there for now and see how this goes. But the lungs, oh, it's not too bad. So here is one lung right here that's in red. And as you guys can imagine, there's going to be one on the opposite side. Hopefully I could find it as well. Hopefully get the lighting correct. Right there is the other lung. Hopefully you guys see that. Oh, and okay, so we're going back to the other side. Here, so again, lung, left lobe of the liver. Here's the stomach, guys. It is under the left lobe of the frog. Keep in mind that the stomach is a major part of the digestive system, but it's not the first part of the digestive system. First part, you guys, it might not be intuitive, but it is the mouth or the buccal cavity. When food is going into the mouth or bolus, it'll eventually go down the esophagus and then into the stomach. After the stomach, we're going to see this curvature right here. This is the first part of the small intestines. The small intestines has 3 parts to it in almost all vertebrates. The first part of the small intestine is called the duodenum. Then the duodenum will eventually go into other parts of the small intestine called the jejunum and ileum. It is difficult to distinguish the jejunum and ileum from the duodenum and from each other unless you're looking at tissues and different cells under a microscope. Small intestine will eventually go into the large intestine, which is right here. Hopefully you literally could see the large intestine is thicker and larger than the small intestines. And then the bolus that has now been digested will go out of the large intestines and out of the cloaca. The cloaca will be, looks like right here. So the cloaca is basically what we call an all-purpose chute. An all-purpose chute, what I mean when I say that is that all reproductive, urinary, and digestive material is going to come out in one all-purpose chute, okay? So that was Digestive System 101. We'll cover digestive system more in detail later in the semester. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see if we could find the urinary bladder. And I say urinary bladder specifically because if we just say bladder, keep in mind, we already went over the gallbladder, which we could re-find again, which is this structure right here. But I'm reinforcing this because animals have more than one bladder. In this case, it's gallbladder, and then we're going to find the urinary bladder. We want to be specific on what types of bladder we're looking for. Bladder. Let's see. It is going to be this structure right here, which is hard to see. This one, I'm poking it up. It's deflated just like the gallbladder, but that's your urinary bladder. Okay, and then another structure we could actually find, it's kind of not tangled in, but it's around the different types of intestines. But here we actually have the spleen, that very round structure right there. And just like the gallbladder, I want you guys to figure out what the spleen's function is. If you guys look it up, hopefully you'll be able to learn it and retain it better yourself. And what else do we have? So you guys might see that there's a lot of this orange noodly stuff, and this is going to be all over your frog. Maybe there's some on this side as well if we look, mostly here. But this is just fat bodies that all amphibians will have. We also have fat bodies. Lots of animals have fat bodies in general. And one thing that I want you guys to do too is to be able to sex your frog. Is it a male or is it a female? In our case, it is going to be a female because if we look closely here, so this orange stuff again is the fat bodies. They are very noodly, but kind of like smaller noodles, which will be down here. Hopefully the video is picking it up at some level. That's going to be your oviduct. And oviducts have a lot to do with eggs when it comes to females. And we could actually see a lot of these really tiny eggs that are right here already forming. Sometimes if you get a very pregnant, far along developed eggs in females, this whole entire body cavity is just going to be loaded with thousands and thousands and thousands of eggs. You cannot miss that your frog is a female. If you cut this open, there's just eggs just falling out of her because there's so many. And if you have a male, we will look in lab together for their testes and basically their reproductive parts. Okay, let me see on my worksheet if there's anything else we need to go over. And I think that's it for now. If there's anything that I didn't cover in this video when I go over it, I'll be sure to go over it in person in lab. Thanks a lot, guys. Review the video. Let me know how I did on the video. And don't forget to thank Dr. Mick, who's behind the screen holding the phone. All right, guys, thanks a lot. All right, guys, quickly, when I was rewatching the videos, I noticed that you could not miss this structure right here. And I'm not sure if you noticed it yourself or not, but this actually is the posterior vena cava. So it's part of the circulatory system. We are not going over the circulatory system in the frog. We will be going over circulatory system later in the semester, but posterior vena cava. So posterior basically means, if you guys recall, it's going to be closer to the legs of the specimen, or in other words, the posterior vena cava is going to be below the heart. We will have an anterior vena cava, which is above the heart. But vena cava, it is a vein, and it brings blood back to the heart. So that's its main function. This animal, like all vertebrates, lots and lots and lots of veins and arteries. We will be going over them later in the semester again. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing. The other structure that I forgot to mention that is and should be on your worksheet is the kidneys. The kidneys are difficult to find in amphibians, and they do not look like our kidneys per se, but hypothetically, if we were looking for the kidney, we would actually move all this away, and the kidney would be lining the back of the frog, interiorly in the back of the frog, on the left and right side of it. But they're very difficult to find, and this is something we definitely will be doing in person. All right, that should be it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you guys soon.